Nicolette, and today Brian and I are here with Lisa Marie and Douglass Hatcher. They joined us a couple of months back to talk to us about storytelling, and they are back to help us create our 100-word origin story. And before we even go there, what is the importance of the origin story? Why should we even write one?
That's a great question. So an origin story does a couple of things. The first thing it can do is help build a bridge between you and your customer. And the way it does that is invariably part of your story is overcoming challenges or odds or obstacles. And when you tell your customer that story with that overcoming of odds, that creates empathy. And empathy is a great thing to have with your customer. The second thing it does is it builds a bridge between you and investors if you're looking to raise money. Because when you are overcoming odds and overcoming obstacles, you're also showing persistence, resilience, you're going to follow through. Investors will see that they can count on you. And when that happens, you build trust. The third thing it can do is not only for customers or investors, but really all stakeholders, is it demonstrates humility, because it reminds people that you haven't forgotten where you have come from. So these things are really helpful in the marketplace: empathy, trust, and humility. So these are three reasons why, and I think people don't necessarily even articulate these reasons, but this is why it can be really helpful.
And when you show your struggles and how you overcame them, that just makes you completely relatable. I mean, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be someone out there in your audience that's shaking their head and saying, oh yeah, we've been through that too. And then you're forming that bond with them, right? Which is what you want to do with your audience, your customer, your client, your stakeholder.
So this is something you do often with clients. And so we are your blank slate, and tell us where do we start when it comes to an origin story? And what is the first thing Brian and I should consider when we sit down to write this origin story?
Well, what we try to do is kind of what we're doing today, which is interviewing our client to understand more about their journey. And we use a tool or an exercise that really kind of helps kick things off. And believe it or not, it is a tool that is the once upon a time story structure. And we'll walk your viewers through the template at a high level, that it's once upon a time and every day until one day, because of that, until finally. That's the way things were for you and for Brian before you all decided to join forces, or before you all came together. So we could talk, let's just start with that. What were you guys doing right before you joined forces? So was there a sense, and this is to both of you, was there a sense that there was an unmet need in the marketplace? There was an unmet need for some of these companies / potential customers? And if so, talk to us or walk us through what your thinking was when it came to the unmet needs.
Yeah, it was an unmet need, but it was also like any company, right? Every company gets set in, here's the products we have, or here's the things we sell. And they get focused on, especially bigger companies, the revenue in those product lines, let's say, right? And what happens is they're like, well, why is it decreasing? And they're worried about it decreasing and keeping people in those current product lines by going, what's actually really needed? It's decreasing maybe because it's no longer effective, or it's not what companies are looking for, or whatever the case is. And what happens is a lot of times they don't want to shift. They want to keep, putting into that depleting product line, right? And I think really that's where it comes. So it was a point where we were like, companies focus on this versus focusing on not even what they need now, but what they're going to need in the future. And how do you build out what the things they're going to need a year from now? So
excellent.
All the need for evolution, I think, is really part of what Brian's saying. So yes, there was a need, because Brian, you're saying the same thing. There was a need. Companies were not fulfilling that need because they were kind of doing what they had always done.
Right.
And so we saw there was a gap, and there was a need to evolve offerings.
Okay, again, you're using a really important word, which is gap. Mission / transformation. But let's move to the because of that. In other words, once you become aware that you need to become a media company, what is it? What are some of the payoffs?
Mhm. Well, the biggest, are you talking about payoffs for us or payoffs for those
For the
other, the
customer,
companies?
for the company that you
For the
are helping.
customer. Well, what happens is now they're now able to aggregate, create their own content, aggregate their own audience, and really function as a media company. And for them, the benefit is they could spend that money internally and invest in their own company to grow those things, versus spending that money in a third party where they're only getting a fraction of the results or a fraction of the payoff. They're getting short-term payoff. So maybe they run their campaign for 3 months, right? Whereas if they're creating content on their site and they're aggregating that audience, now that piece of content lives on their site forever, and that's aggregating, that's getting traffic for them forever, or aggregating audience that they could now nurture to become a sale. Because we all know that, usually the sale does not happen on the first touch point. That's
Right.
usually you need to have multiple touch points with the user. So what's happening is if they're able to aggregate that audience, they're able to nurture that user, right, in order to become a customer and get them through that conversion funnel. Whereas previously with traditional media, a lot of times what would happen is there was maybe if you were lucky, 2 touch points, right? But usually it was 1 touch point, then they ported you off to that other company, and then you sort of had to figure it out from there. Whereas when the company aggregates that information, when it's the company's information, when it lives on their site, their nurturing process could be much longer. If it takes 10 touch points, they could establish all 10 touch points. So if you think about it, if they were spending that 1 touch point, and let's say that touch point is $1 on that media company, but you need 10, it really costs you, say, $10 on that media company, which is probably unrealistic to what would happen. But now you get them once, and you already have those other touch points for free. So it's that 1 touch point that you're just paying for initially to get that user, and then nurturing them. So that's, and that's at a super high level, right? That's not, exactly how it works, but at a super high level, it's a simple way to explain it. And, those multiple touch points are really what the user needs in order to become a sale, especially for really big companies, or conversion. And that could be any type of conversion. That could be becoming, subscriber to their newsletter, purchasing their product. It could be various different types of conversions, depending on what they're trying to do.
And I think a follow-on to that is when you mentioned the 1 or 2 touch points versus the 10 touch points, what you're really getting at, I think, is deeper, more sustainable, longer lasting relationships, which is what people
Absolutely.
are looking for. And you are going to be, those relationships are going to be the ones that you can depend on better because you've got this deeper connection.
No, absolutely. Like if you just think about content, right? This is one of the things we always say to people. Content, when you create a content, a piece of content on your website, it doesn't matter what type of company you are, right? You're educating someone. You're basically creating a piece of content to educate someone. Now, if you think about what companies did 10 years ago, they were just, here's my product on the site, buy it, right? Now it's, here's an article on X, and I'm educating you about a topic, and here's my product over here in the corner. If you want it, that's great, right? So what's happening is companies had to create, to your point, right? They had to create a different dynamic between themselves and that user. So it wasn't like, hey, buy my product. It was, hey, I'm educating you. I'm creating a different exchange. I'm creating a value relationship with the user in order, and then in return, hopefully they're going to buy my product, right? Because I've created.
So what I think we want you to do is to go back and go through the structure and focus on, the fact that you guys were once in the media space. I mean, you initially were in the media space, but then I think Lisa Marie actually put the timeline together really well just a few minutes ago. But take a crack at it. Don't worry about the 100-word part. Worry about the structure and just kind of filling in the blanks, and then send it over to us, and we will take a look, give you some feedback, send it back, and then see what you guys think.
Awesome. All right, I could do that.
Sound like a plan?
Sounds like a good plan.
Absolutely.
Okay.